Commissioner, and we will go to my right here.
I'm Julie Graham, Commissioner.
Commissioner Bacon, Anchorage Health Department.
I'm Darcy Montalvo, Human Services Division Manager, Anchorage Health Department.
Kyle Milkey, Community Safety and Development.
Chase Bergrave, AHD staff.
Frankie Dahl, I am the staffer for this commission.
Daniel Sager, Commissioner.
Jessica Parks, Commissioner.
Valerie in the back.
Valerie Matson, Community Safety Development.
Next.
Jamie Lopez. I'm a random guy that shows up to meetings.
My name is Abe Hernandez. I'm the director for the Center for Workforce Excellence for NYSA.
And lastly, our newest commissioner.
Marvin Johnson, Commissioner. So thank you.
We're so happy to have you today. Appreciate you joining the commission. Do you want to take a moment to just 30 seconds about who you are and why you're interested in the commission?
Okay, sure. So, originally from South Carolina, out of high school, went to Millsbury, did 3 years in the Army, and then went to school, did engineering, went into corporate also, and now I'm in education. Basically, that's it.
Great. What interests you in the HHAND Commission?
I've always been interested in getting involved in the private work. I actually run my own little nonprofit where I reach out to underrepresented students to expose them to STEM. So, I've always had a passion for working in the community.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
And then also joining us, we're doing introductions. You made it just in time for introduction.
Great. I'm Thea Agnew-Van with the Mayor's Office.
Thank you all for being here. Moving on to the approval of the order of business. Can I get a motion to approve? To approve from Jessica, and can I get a second? A second. Any discussion or modifications?
I had a question. I don't know if I'm permitted. So at the last meeting, you were discussing the possibility of discussing sanctuary camps.
So I think we'll, if you have public comment, you're welcome to give public comment towards the end. Any adjustment to? I did have one thing I wanted to add to the agenda, just under the update from the special assistants to the mayor. Also add an update from the Anchorage Health Department, and that would be from Layla Taylor. Am I allowed to make that motion as the chair, or do I need someone else to make that motion for me?
That's an excellent question.
Well, good thing we have a Robert's Rule of
I
Rules of
know.
Order.
Right now,
Training after
the
this.
motion was to approve the agenda.
Motion and
as
then
it was,
second.
So then you would need to do a subsidiary motion to amend the original motion to amend the agenda.
We motion to approve the agenda, then we second it, and then we open it up for discussion, and then there's discussion, then we would approve the agenda as amended if there's an edit. So I would motion to add an update from the health department, and I would need a second for that. We have a second here. Any discussion or opposition to that?
And Dave, excuse me, may I just clarify it?
Lila? Yeah. Did I say Layla? I always mix it. Sorry, Lila.
Who was the second there? Thank you, Marvin.
No objections, so now back to the original motion of approval of the agenda as amended. Any objection? Great, so we'll just add the health department in after, between Thea and Jed, if that's agreeable to everyone. I don't see Jed, but. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the approval of last month's minutes. Can I get a motion to approve minutes from last month? Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Go ahead and take a minute to read through the minutes. And we'll open it up for discussion. Big thank you to Jessica for chairing in my absence.
Would like the record to show the adjourned 17.
Hey! Well, I would note that the record does show that. Wonderful efficiency. I will, under the commissioner comments, it does say that I had a comment, but I wasn't present.
It was, I read them your email comment.
Oh, great,
So
okay.
we could specify that, maybe that it was email comment, that might look weird, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, is that, do we need to do that through amendment, or can we just?
I feel like that's.
Great.
editorial.
Editorial. Any material changes to the minutes? Any opposition to approval of the minutes? Going once, going twice. Motion, minutes are approved. Great job, everyone. All right, we don't currently have any action items, so we will go ahead and move on to informational items. And I'll turn it over to Thea. Update from the Special Assistant to the Mayor to help homelessness.
Great. Lots happening. Kind of the top line that we'll talk about in a minute with McKenna later on down the agenda is this is really the first week where we officially have municipally operated year-round shelter. So as you probably all remember, last winter we did a combination of the 200 congregate beds at East 56 plus non-congregate beds that were only open seasonally. And as our kind of overall strategy is to really transition to having year-round shelter because it's less disruptive for people, it's less impact on the neighborhood, and it also, we're going to be now in 2 locations where we can add surge capacity as needed. So instead of having to turn on warming at a separate location, which we did last winter and people weren't able to sleep while they were there, we'll be able to add extra beds at our low barrier locations. So that's happening, that the transition happened over the weekend. So we now have Henning as our operator at East 56, 100 people there. Again, there'll be some surge capacity. And then we have our new location, which is called Linda's Place. It's on East Fifth Avenue. And that also will be 100 people with surge capacity. So we've been making that transition, and Lila's been managing that along with her team, McKenna, and I think it's gone pretty well. So that's good news. And then we continue to have the 100 non-congregate beds at the Alex Hotel. And all of that will be, seeking approval for continuing those budgets in 2026. But that's our game plan, that we have those year-round shelter beds. And then, of course, also working closely with the other shelter beds in the community that the muni helps to fund. And we have our contract with Restorative Reentry Services, so Kathleen and Emily, who really help coordinate all those beds, and also help with some of our outreach and make sure people are connecting to those services. So that's been kind of big deal. Health department's done the heavy lifting and the providers, so thanks to everybody who's done that. Some of the other work that we've been focused on, so in terms of working towards our goal of fewer people sleeping outside, we've been doing a lot of work around camp abatement and outreach. So that's been really kind of intense lately. A lot of work happening around Chester Creek. And we now are we don't have an abatement actively happening right now. So what we're doing right now is really just sending out healthy spaces, our outreach team, CAP team, and addressing people who are still camping and trying to move them towards shelter, treatment, other types of resolution. We have, I think many of you know Kenny Peterson, who's a wonderful community member who makes some of his own funding available to help cover some of those costs that really make a difference for people, whether that's something as big as a plane ticket or something as small as just like the fee to get your driver's license. So Kenny and I have been working together with others to turn that into what we're calling the Good Neighbor Fund. So we're establishing that as a fund at the Community Foundation. And hopefully pretty soon we'll be encouraging other people to contribute to that fund, because what we find is some of those, may seem kind of like small cash outlays can make a huge difference. We were able to get a whole family home recently. We've sent another couple folks back home to the lower 48. So those can just really make a difference in terms of helping people get to their next safe place. And then also a big effort with all of our shelter beds will be, of course, helping people exit to safe places. So continuing to work, and Jed will talk about this, with our rental assistance and other types of subsidies to help people stay in the housing that they were able to get into with that funding. Let's see, we also have our micro units project. We have a contract signed with the contractor to construct the units in the site. That's going to go in at a location that the municipality owns by Tudor and Elmore. So right now the contract is to do 24 micro units. We're also trying to wrestle some money out of a national funder that would allow us to add another 8 units. So hopefully we'll get to that and have a 32 unit location there. And then the health department will be shortly putting out the RFP for the operator of those units, because they will be operated as a behavioral health treatment program called Recovery Residence. And then that same operator will also be able to use the location at what's called currently the Golden Lion. Once that's remodeled, there'll be some outpatient treatment space there that the same operator can use. So that RFP should be coming out probably end of this week, early next. Got a little delayed because of all the shelter transition stuff that we were working on. And then of course another big thing we're doing is we're heading into budget season. So that means that the mayor puts forward her budget, which we're all working on. There'll be a bunch of work sessions and opportunities for advocacy, and then that gets completed in November. And something that we're doing differently with our year-round shelter is just trying to get out of the mode of having to do contracts for like 5 months at a time and then extend them and all this kind of mayhem that is a huge amount of work for everybody. So trying to get out of that mode and into just kind of year-round services. I think that's probably it. There's a lot of other stuff happening, but that's probably it.
Can I ask for the RFP for the operator for the recovery residences? Do you know what the turnaround time is for the RFP?
We're gonna have it posted for 4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the municipally operated shelter and sort of getting out of that, like 5-month contract, 3-month contract, what does the administration, or what do you see as sort of the future of the muni directly operated shelter through contracted? Is that how you really see the muni wanting to like sort of conduct this business, or move more towards kind of like those more traditional grant type of agreements like we've sort of seen in the past? Because it puts the muni on the hook for all of the costs of operating shelter, which gets expensive.
Yeah, I think, this latest round, we actually worked really hard to bring the cost down, and I think we actually succeeded with that. I think that's a really great question, and I think it's one that would be wonderful to hear other people's like opinions on. Part of the reason that the municipality is operating shelter now is, you know, as we all know, kind of coming out of COVID, we lost capacity in the community system, and then we also have, you know, we have an increase in people experiencing homelessness. So our goal, of course, is to like reduce that number. I think with our latest PIC count, we're like holding steady, but we're not really seeing a downward trend yet. I mean, that is, again, that's our goal. So I think in some ways, it's kind of an open question. Is this just something that we need to provide now in order to make sure we have that really low barrier, you know, 24/7 safety net available for people? I'm sure we'd all love to think like, oh no, we're gonna get this sorted out. But I think, you know, we've seen a huge increase in people being unsheltered, which again, our main goal is fewer people sleeping outside. So if people are not gonna be outside, they need somewhere to be inside. And again, treatment is a great option, housing's a great option, getting home to family or friends is a great option, but when those aren't easy to get to, we do need kind of what we kind of think of as like the emergency room for people. And so again, another goal is to make sure people aren't staying there unnecessarily long, because then we can use those beds to serve more people. Yeah, I'd love to hear other people's views on that. I don't know. I mean, I think we're trying to get into a more stable system and then be able to serve people better and hopefully move them to a better location for them.
Yeah, I guess I would chime in. I think one of the things we see is when the government, talking like big government, state government, federal government, do fund shelter activities, they typically do it with a like 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 match requirement in there, to where the government is only picking up a certain proportion. Like if you look at the ESG funds, which is shelter would be an allowable expense to that, you know, it has a matching funds requirement in it. So I would echo David's question that, you know, have we ever thought about having something like that in the RFP where you're asking for proposals where the municipality puts 75% of the bill and the provider needs to put forward some type of contribution into it?
I mean, we did in this last round require people to give us a plan for when they would add some billing revenue. Didn't get super compelling responses there. I mean, I think we do think of the community operated shelter that the municipality significantly contributes to as more in the version of what you're describing.
That's I guess where I was thinking
Yeah.
along the lines of, I think the muni does investments in shelter in 2 different ways.
Yep.
There's the investment where you're more like, I think of it as like top-off funding into it, and then.
Okay, but it's way more than that. I mean, it's 50-60%, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're significantly contributing to those in a way that they probably wouldn't exist if we weren't contributing. So, you know, and that's to kind of get to the number of beds that we're able to support right now. I mean, I think if the community could produce more beds with a lower municipal contribution, that'd be fantastic. But that hasn't been, I mean, the last 5 years, I think like in 2019, I think Brother Francis was 80% community contributions and 20% muni. And now, probably not a total flip, but it's a lot more significant now, I think.
Yeah, it was about 85%, and a lot of the public funding came through the state.
Yeah.
You know,
So, I mean, we've lost most of that. Yeah.
I just wonder what what those barriers are. You said you didn't get a whole lot of responses. I'd be interested in hearing from providers, like why they didn't bid. What were the challenges? Are we seeing like community contributions decrease? You know, people who may have depended on donations to support some of those expenses, they're not getting those donations anymore.
I mean, no, we do have, you know, Downtown Hope is not funded by Muni, Gospel Rescue not funded, McKinnell not funded, you know, like, so those are ones that I don't think are getting federal funding either.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, not much. And
Not
then,
for shelter.
you know, we have others that are more of a mix. I mean, I'd love to hear, I mean, part of the reason we're going to year-round also is because then it can just be licensed, and we don't have to do this heavy management as we've been doing. And so that's the goal as well. I mean, honestly, if there is a way to reduce, or spread it out more so that we can have more beds with the same amount of money, fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that some providers see, and I think we're moving away from this, was the temporary nature of some of those programs, Sullivan Arena, East 56, up until a month ago was seen as a temporary location that was going to close down on September 1st. So I think if these Linda's Place in East 56 end up being seen as much more long-term, it would make sense for other providers to look at trying to braid together a funding stream that's going to support that will use, non-municipal funds and municipal funds. But I think with it being, that 2-month contract, 5-month contract, it was difficult to kind of put that funding stack together.
Sure.
Like do the work to do all that.
You're talking about volatility and essentially planning processes.
Well, just about,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to get those long-term agreements, and to allocate resources towards a certain project if it's going to be closing in 3 months or 5 months or whatever. But I think, I don't know exactly what I think these programs are talked about in terms of years as opposed to months, and I think that makes it much more attractive. So I guess
We do still have, just to clarify, so East 56 is still location. It's still not ideal. So the building is, I mean, I think it'll be way better with half the number of people in it, but it's just still not a great location. I mean, the location is okay. The building is just not really meant for what it's being used for. And so part of what we're working on this year is to kind of evaluate it. Is that something that should be more of a long-term location? Should we invest in it and kind of do some remodeling and make it a better location? Or is a different place better? I think what's hard is that in the negotiation for these 2 shelter contracts, we probably looked at 12 different locations amongst the 2 bidders. It's hard to come up with a good location, both in terms of the building, the neighborhood. It's just real. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So, and the muni unfortunately doesn't have other I believe me, combed what do we have? What can we use? And we just don't. We've got Cliff Row, which isn't great. I mean, although we're trying to reuse it for a different purpose, but so it's just the location is hard. Yeah. So I mean, we definitely want to look into East 56 as should we be there or not? Should we move? I don't know. I'm totally open to input. Yeah.
I mean, great question. I 100% agree that the building is a challenge. I think that there could be potential there with some investment. I mean, it's a big open space. You have to do something about the plumbing, which would be very, very expensive. But yeah. Other questions from the commissioners, comments, thoughts?
I had a question. The ongoing business ed update about AO 2025-74 implementation. So,
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was interested to hear about that, and then I had some feedback as well. But I guess first, I don't know.
Yeah, so mostly what we've been doing up until probably the beginning of this week is civil abatement. So we had an abatement at West High, and then all along Chester Creek. And so just like with our previous abatements, if somebody returns to the area after the abatement's completed, then they can be trespassed. We do, starting, what's today, Wednesday? Yeah, so starting yesterday, as we kind of go through a lot of other locations that are reported on the map, we are, if they're in some of those safe zones, we will be using and we are using the new AO. There's only been 1 arrest so far under that AO. That was reported today at the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting.
Due to trespassing.
No, due to camping, so under the new AO, there's been one arrest.
Oh, because it was in a safe.
Yeah,
Okay.
there have been other arrests, but those were on people with warrants, so they were not arrested under the AO. And so you may see more of that as we get into these areas that are along Campbell Creek, for example, you know, just along roads, but that's where we're at right now with it.
Is it okay, Rick?
I think if you have public comment, we'll hold that for the,
Okay, so if it's pertaining to this, then we can't talk about this.
we keep it.
Okay. So my concern with AO 2025 is before us too, is it was built essentially in a way to make it where there's no place left in town where you can technically camp, and then some of the areas on the map where you say you can, there are no camping signs posted in those areas, and then Parks and Rec sometimes comes out and they take people's things, and then similarly, police officers come out and endlessly displace people in areas. And so the issue that I'm looking at this on a larger level and scale is you had 532 beds last year of housing. That's essentially been reduced to 300. Kim Rash in a meeting last week said that they don't, the health department or the mayor's office doesn't intend to increase the capacity for non-congregate hotels. I can tell you this, a lot of people don't like going into congregate shelters. You know this, everybody knows this at this table. And so the issue is you're reducing by 232 beds. People are being displaced, so it's more of an optics problem, so they don't have the ability to create their own shelter and stability. And then you also have people on ERA, and I think the number was 276 people that were on emergency rental assistance that were coming out being homeless. And typically with 3-4 months of ERA for something like this, they haven't dealt with the underlying problems that got them to be homeless to begin with. And so those people are going to be probably right back out into the street at the end of the month. And so you have reduced beds, you have people coming out in ERA, and then the police endlessly displacing people. And so if you do not have a plan to support the people outside, and do not act quick either to increase the capacity of beds or to have a plan in place for full-time support, you're going to have a lot of people either getting serious cases of frostbite or turning into popsicles. And I know there are any number of people that RVs and tents that have come across where they were packed like clown cars last year, and if they don't have the ability to build the insulation, it's a predictable outcome. And so it just, I'll stop there. Thank you.
I mean, I can respond a little bit to that. So, first of all, we are going to add surge capacity. So there will be additional, so 300 year-round, and then we'll have surge at the 2 locations. We are really trying to make sure that our congregate shelters are better for the people using them than previously. You know, just having 200 people in one location like East 56 is just really hard. So having 100 there, the Linda's Place is a 3-story building. It's much more like people are in smaller groups, basically, with women on a separate floor. There's bathrooms and showers on each floor. So we're really trying to make it so that the congregate shelter is more, you know, just a better experience for people. And again, having the smaller groups, hopefully we'll get better case management and just more kind of, you know, working with folks. You know, our goal from day one is fewer people camping outside. Camping outside is not safe. It's not a good option for anyone, and I think we've seen that again and again this winter, this summer, years past. So that's not an option. We will do whatever we can to make sure we have enough places for people to go indoors. With the rental assistance, I think Jed's going to speak to that in just a minute. We're aware of that risk. We also feel like there are quite a few people that are going to be able to maintain their housing. So that's our goal, and we will continue to be doing the kind of robust outreach and engagement and trying to help people resolve throughout the year. That's not stopping at any point. So, and just when I did look at outdoor deaths over the last couple of years, you know, contrary to what I think people think, many more of the deaths happen in the warmer months between April and October. And I think part of what I get from that is that when there isn't shelter available, people are outside and they are, you know, doing things that are more risky, and I mean, many more people die in those months. So that's part of the reason to do year-round, is that we want people to have that option.
Warm during the day.
So a quick question, when 2025-74 was being debated and talked about, it did have some amendments. There was conversations about there being a GIS map created. Do you know what the status of that is?
There is a GIS map.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is it on the Turning the Tide page?
I will double check.
If nothing else, it's linked on the hand.
The problem with the map
Okay,
is it says
great.
it's informational purposes only, it has no legal binding in stature, and so the police, they go, they displace people.
One other thing that I have been hearing is the past practices when APD would do an actual abatement, there wasn't really a practice of going in and collecting IDs and checking IDs on people, but with this new enforcement of 2025-74, like you talked about arresting for open warrants, what I'm hearing is that that's the first thing that happens, is the APD is saying, show me your ID, who are you? And so it is creating a less friendly encounter than when a traditional abatement would happen, where a traditional abatement was focused on you're camping somewhere you shouldn't be, you need to be moving, whereas this one is definitely more of a criminal encounter of you are breaking one law, you must be breaking more, show me your ID. So
I mean, just, so part of what isn't different right now is it's basically the same team doing the enforcement, so it's really still just CAP team.
I know.
So
that's what I think was concerning in some of the reports.
Okay, so in terms of scale though, it's not like we've got like full patrol, like it's still the same folks, and we're still doing the same like rhythm that we have been doing so far, which is Hope Team and others are doing outreach first before we're doing any kind of enforcement. So that is happening. That's still our kind of rhythm. But I will take that feedback, Jessica, for sure. I mean, like I said, this is like the first week that we're actually getting out. You know, we don't have an abatement happening, so we're getting out to other areas. So I'll definitely take that back to you.
I think some of the concerns, they're not telling people where they can go. And shelters full too. And people go to the next place, the next place, the next place. And they're being traumatized. And so when the outreach comes out as well, whether it's people in uniform, not in uniform, they're less likely to want to interact with people. Sometimes just because the amount of times bad things happen. So I'll stop talking.
And I would say if you're interested in contributing to the conversation, we do have open commission seats on that side. Right. If you're interested, go ahead and apply. Anything else? Before we move on, I just want to point out I neglected to recognize all of the people that have joined us online when we did our introductions. I am so sorry to the four of you. Do y'all want to do just quick introductions for the record?
Sure, I can go. I am Kimberly White with the English Health Department.
Thanks, Kim.
I'll hop in. My name's Laura Rains. I'm a commissioner, and I'm here today because I'm dealing with a sick kiddo and may have to hop off in a moment. So I'm here for as long as I can be.
Thank you.
My name is Lila Taylor. I'm the Housing Services Manager with the Anchorage Health Department, and I will apologize in advance if y'all hear what sounds like a very off-tune opera singer. My son cannot carry a tune in a bucket, and he also has no volume control, so I'm hoping you guys will be spared that sound.
And we got one more, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Michelle Baker, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, and again, my sincerest apologies for getting y'all online. Moving on in the agenda, update from the health department.
So Thea actually gave most of my update, so I don't have a ton more to add. The only thing I would really add is that we, as Thea mentioned, to have now the 2 congregate shelter locations, one on 56, one on 5th Avenue. As of yesterday, we did start the process with the operators of gradually moving guests from 56th over to 5th Avenue. They started moving people yesterday. We moved some more people today. The final group of people will move tomorrow. So the ultimate goal is by the end of the day tomorrow, there will be 100 guests at each location. There is a potential that there may be less just by, you know, people checking out or moving on to, you know, other situations. And from speaking with both Henning and MASH, who are the 2 current operators, the process of moving individuals and their belongings has gone pretty smoothly. There hasn't, that they've shared, been any hiccups or issues in that process thus far. So, you know, so far it's going pretty well.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Of course.
Okay. I'm just curious, how do they determine who was going from East 56 to Linda's Place?
Great question.
So initially the process was that in one of the weekly meetings with the operators and with RRS, they kind of discussed that. They did some case conferencing, but ultimately there were discussions held with the guests who were at 56, and the majority of the guests who are moving over volunteered to go over there. So they had, I think from what I can recall, there was not anybody who was like told, hey, pack your stuff, you have to move to this other location. Guests were asked if they would be interested, and those who moved over did so voluntarily.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then can I ask about the surge capacity? What would trigger moving from 100 to 150 beds at those locations? Is that determine them?
We haven't totally figured that out yet, and I don't think it's just going to be temperature or something objective. I think it'll really be a little bit more demand driven.
Yeah.
So this month we're going to like figure that out together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we anticipate doing that from like a date to a date?
So that's a little bit budget dependent. So what we're proposing is about 6 months of surge capacity so that we have space in the year. But again, that's kind of subject to the budget process.
Thank you. Any questions for the health department?
So the facility on 5th, that can hold 150?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on, update from CSD. Jed, you're up.
Yeah, so Jed Drolet, Community Assistance Program Manager, Anchorage Health Department. So this is our update on community safety and development programs. Main thing I think people are interested in is emergency rental assistance. So that is coming to an end at the end of September. So now we're into September, and so we are working with the grantees to make sure that they're spending down all their money and helping as many people as possible with either rental arrears or current rent. For this month, unfortunately, we can't pay October rents with the RA. So we really have to be judicious about how we spend those funds. Latest development on that is we are actually reallocating some funds between the grantees. One of the grantees was not able, determined they were not going to be able to spend down all their funds by the end of September, and so they requested that we reallocate that to other grantees, and we're in the process. That's what I was doing just earlier when I came into the meeting, is doing some calculations about how to reallocate those funds in the most efficient manner, so we can get that done quickly and make sure that we spend on that money. And we do have other grantees that do have the capacity to spend that money and have offered to take it. So we'll be doing some amendments to the agreements to make sure we do that. In parallel, we're also going to be allocating some additional funding, not very much, but a little bit of money that we have from our home ARP allocation to provide rental assistance beyond September. It is a very small amount compared to the ERA allocation, but we have about $260,000 in home ARP that we are in the process of reallocating to that. So we have a substantial amendment to our home ARP allocation plan that is in a public comment period now. We have a public hearing for that tomorrow. It's at the Lusac Library in the William Marston Theater at 6 p.m. We also have a Teams event for that to go online. You can find that on our website, the link for that. Basically that substantial amendment is just taking that chunk of money and reallocating it to tenant-based rental assistance. The actual allocation of funding, which we are planning to provide through the existing contracts with the ERA providers who also have home ARP money in their contracts already. We're going to do that allocation according to our criteria that we've established for the highest need demographics and populations that are at risk of losing their housing at the end of September. So we'll be doing those. Those contract amendments likely will require assembly approval, and so we'll be aiming to get that on for the September 23rd meeting, which means that we have to get that done in the next couple days to get on that agenda, but that kind of just is where we're at with that. So be able to provide a little bit of additional assistance to cushion that blow, and hopefully keep people from having to end up back out on the street. Otherwise, we're just allocating our various buckets of funding through the processes we have for that. Our 2025 action plan is under review by HUD right now, and so once that's in place, we'll be able to spend money for 2025. We're discussing some ways that we might allocate some of the other buckets of funding that we have. He keeps accusing me of burying the lead with ERA, so I will just say that I have assisted 581 clients with ERA funds so far. We're probably going to get a few more, especially with this reallocation of funds. We'll be able to get another probably 30 or 40 people. So we'll probably end up around 600 or a little higher, which is about what we estimated when we first put this in place back in the spring. So yeah, we're doing a lot, and I can take any questions in the rest.
Questions from the commissioners?
I'd just like to add, please come down to public comment tomorrow so they're not alone.
Which sometimes we are.
Very lonely.
Usually. For the 581 folks that have been assistance of impressive number, are we going to be tracking any housing retention for those?
We'll be tracking, certainly the required Treasury requirements for reporting on those. And I don't know offhand how long that the required tracking is for that, but we'll do whatever we can to get as much data as we can on that. One thing about ERA, just in the time that it's existed, the reporting requirements are very extensive, as our grantees have discovered, and that has allowed for a lot of analysis of the program over the years that it's been in place, and so there is the potential for tracking that in some detail, and so we'll definitely get that. We should have good data after that the program wraps up on kind of outcomes and housing retention, things like that.
I was just going to say, Jen, it's not perfect, but I do get a weekly report of all of the FED filings. Mm-hmm. If you ever wanted to have that report and cross-reference it.
Okay.
Good. It's only people who make it all the way to the FED filing, though. Mm-hmm. So.
Anything for Jay? Okay, thank you. Moving on, discussion about the 10,000 Homes in 10 Years initiative. This has been sitting on ongoing business. There has been some discussion in the past about the HAND Commission drafting and potentially voting on a resolution to ask to track or add goals for specific types of housing, permanent supportive housing, very low income housing, those types of things. And I wanted to ask the commission if there is still a desire to do that. And if so, who wants to go ahead and put pen to paper? And
I just have two things that are gonna be coming forward soon that might be worth the HAND Commission weighing in on, but
Sure.
I can wait until someone answers your question. But it might be something you would wanna do specifically, you know what I mean, like your resolution may be specific to one of these items.
I could work with someone on a draft of that for discussion.
This would be like thoughts on adding and subtracting from the existing
Yeah,
plan.
yeah, or talking about, that a certain percentage of them be affordable or capped at fair market rents.
I would be interested.
yeah, I see Michelle has her hand up as well.
3's allowed, right, Frankie?
2.
2?
2.
Michelle, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm also interested in this, but if others have more time, I'd be happy to look at a resolution and, provide input.
And for process, we have two people that can get together and write it. But then that resolution would come in front of this body, and then
For discussion. Okay.
we can essentially completely rewrite it through amendment and all of that if we need to. We hopefully we don't, but
Even
people
bef-
can get their comments in.
Even before that, if I get a draft, I can distribute it to commissioners and you can compile any edits or comments before the actual commission meeting itself to make that go more smoothly as well.
Great. So what I'm hearing is the two of you will work together on putting pen to paper. And now I'm so very interested. What you got, Thea?
Okay, so one ordinance or code change that's already gone through planning and zoning and it's coming to the assembly. I don't know if is it on the relocatable dwelling units? Is it on the?
No, not next Tuesday.
Okay, so it might be coming the next one. It sounds super wonky, which is why I'm bringing it to your attention, because otherwise it might just be like gloss over. But basically what this will do is currently with our current code, if you live in a mobile home, there really is not a feasible way for you to like repair that or even replace it. And also there are limits in our code to what you can do in terms of like smaller dwelling units. So this code change will allow people or allow different types of dwelling units in what are currently mobile home parks. The names of these things are changing a little bit. That's also kind of outlined in there. So that instead of not having any options of what you could replace your trailer with, you'd have many options as long as it meets our basic building code. So that creates a lot of opportunity for actually redeveloping those areas and making more habitable, safer dwellings. It also will increase the number of dwelling units you can have in those locations. And then it also makes some changes to if you want to do a different type of dwelling unit, but in, say, the backyard of your current single-family home. It also makes some changes to what's allowed there. Those ones have to be on a permanent foundation. And weirdly, the ones in the mobile home parks can't be on a permanent foundation, which that confused me for a while, but that's the case for a variety of reasons. But anyway, that's one where I feel like there's this huge opportunity to be able to like really lower the cost of housing for people who either are renting or maybe it's their own first home. So that's one. And then the second one, I've forgotten what it was. So I'll have to come back to that.
Do you know what the number is? Like, is it?
I can find it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first part of that, where you said you had wanted to replace a trailer or fix it, you're basically grandfathered in a trailer now, right? But if something happens to it, then
Yeah, but like if your
Isn't that
trailer
situation-
catches fire or the
Right.
roof caves in, like there just isn't a very like, the only thing you can replace it with is a manufactured home, which is way too expensive for most people. And then in terms of fixing something so that it meets code, that there's just not
Can't do
a
it,
real
so you're pretty much
possible way to do
screwed.
it,
Okay.
yeah.
Will this,
Oh, no, go ahead.
will this allow, are SIPS panels approved yet? Or?
That's a great question, and I think they are, but this is again
Okay.
getting.
I know there was seismic, they hadn't passed seismic, but UA was doing a lot of seismic testing, and so I wasn't sure if they finished all of that.
AIC in Wastilla has all that.
I know.
Yeah, okay, so you talked about.
But the municipality has different.
Oh,
I think,
okay,
I think we've passed those.
Okay.
But you should double check, yeah.
And there wouldn't be an issue with mixing and matching mobile homes and, like, you could kind of mix them in, okay.
Very cool. So the next meeting, you think, not this upcoming
I'll look
Tuesday,
over here.
the one after that?
It's not on the agenda for this
Okay.
Tuesday, but
I
I
mean, let's say buying that trailer park over.
So it would be introduced maybe at this meeting and then set for public hearing at the next meeting?
let me find out for you, just I don't have that on my head, sorry.
Jessica and Michelle, just for agenda creation purposes, do you think that you would like to handle this in October, November? Like, what are we thinking for timelines as far as having a draft for review?
Oh, for the 10,000 home plans?
Yes.
I can do it in a month.
Okay.
Yeah, I would put the challenge out there, let's get it out there for
I
October.
like how it's.
And then can we vote on 2 resolutions in a year?
Oh my
That would be,
I know, if this is
Yeah.
coming forward in October, like we've got 2 more months after that.
we could,
Resolution a month. It's
yeah.
coming.
I remember the second one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So when we were trying to get the shelter contracts passed, we also were trying to reappropriate some funds that had been appropriated in 2022, and they were supposed to be used for another hotel conversion. It was $1.3 million. But the nonprofit that they were appropriated to never got the other match money, so we wanted to take that money back. The assembly did not like the idea that we use that for shelter, so they asked us to come back with some other ideas of how we can use this 1.3 million. So we're working on kind of 2 strategies, and Judd is also helping with this, as well as we're kind of exploring what ACDA can do. But essentially the 2 things we're working on, and I don't have a full picture here, I'm just giving you like the cliff notes of where we are right now, is trying to help increase the amount of funding we have to just demolish properties that are unsafe and already are listed as vacant and abandoned, so that those, well, sometimes those are actually already muni owned because they've been foreclosed on. Sometimes they're still owned by a property owner, but they want the structure demolished so that they can reuse the lot. So that's one bucket. And then another bucket is, what we realized is that we don't have a great way for people who own a property that's kind of in poor condition, but they don't have the money to really even figure out, like, should I invest in this or should I demolish this? So we're now trying to figure out how we can put kind of a rehab fund together in a process to do that. So that's kind of as far as we've gotten so far. Anything you want to add to that, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have much more than that, except that like various buckets of funding are potentially mixed there, including some of our HUD funding that can be used for that sorts of demolition rehab, things like that, as well as that 1.3 million that you mentioned. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion.
Thank you. And, okay, well, we'll go and move on to new business. Everyone's favorite topic, Robert's rules. Procedure, Robert's rules of order. This is.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, I'm certainly not trying to swarm out of this, but being a Robert's Rules expert, your agenda has a few things after me. I certainly don't want to trample on that. And I could come back and do a full hour work session. Generally, when we do Robert's Rules trainings, we usually like to do an all-nighter, like a pajama party, because there's a lot to it. And so only doing it in 15 minutes, I am totally ready to get going, but I just want to offer that if you guys think, maybe a full hour with Jeff would be better.
Let's try to do the quick version,
Want to do
and
that?
then, if people wanna do a pajama party, we can invite you back.
All right, I'll take you up on it.
All right.
Even if quick version and the party. So guys, this is the municipal clerk, Jamie, in case you haven't.
And we have Jeff because I would certainly make you fall asleep.
And Jamie just passed out a few things here. Normally at the pajama party, there's a script on the third thing in your packet. It's this script, and we have volunteers each take a role, and we just randomly came up with these names in the script of Elaine and George and Jerry and Kramer. And you go through this dialogue that they have, and it's basically just to show you that you can take a layman's conversation about trying to decide things, and you can apply that to Robert's Rules. You don't have to use heavy hitter topics to understand Robert's Rules. We could just use benign, simple examples like, I moved to get a tattoo. I moved to have ice cream. We don't have to talk about some of the subjects you guys have been talking about, even though they're very worthwhile, in order to understand Robert's Rules. And it can be really helpful to take that scope into mind. So, with that being said, take those home if you'd like. We're not going to actually do a cast reading here. It would have been fun. But take those home and see if that helps you to see how you can take that script and convert it over to Robert's Rules. The other two guides in here, the first guide is the most commonly used motions guide. Those are the motions that you're generally going to use in your meetings here, and maybe some of them look familiar to you already. And then the next guide is what's called the precedence guide. We want to say precedence, but in Robert's Rules that's actually pronounced precedence. And I'm going to explain what that guide actually means here in a little bit. All right, with that being said, let's get going here. So Robert's Rules was invented by General Henry Robert way back in the late 1800s. And one of the great things that that Mr. Robert did in inventing Robert's Rules is he made it very malleable with your bylaws, with our charter and with our code. And so whenever we come in and do a training, you have to remember that we don't know your ins and outs super well. We don't know how you're adjusting to our Robert's Rules. It's kind of like playing Monopoly. You see that in the background. You know, in my house with Monopoly, we put all the money on free parking that comes into the game. And if you hit go, you get to take that with you. You guys might have played that for all I know. And so that's a house rule. And so you kind of meld that house rule with the game rules. Robert's Rules is no different. You kind of have your house rules, your charter, your code that kind of converts Robert's Rules. And so we can't totally speak on every in and out that you guys do. So keep that in mind as we go forward. With that being said, here's an example. There's Robert's Rules example of an agenda on the left. There's your agenda from today on the right. And you can see there's clearly some differences. All right, we talked about the guides that you guys have. We're going to be going over both of those guides here in a little bit. And then also know that you can always give the municipal clerk's office a call. You can ask for me personally or ask for Jamie. We can come back and do that pajama party. We certainly don't mind helping you however we can. There's lots of great books out there. We give a copy of that Robert's Rules of Order and Brief book to all new assembly members. We definitely think that's a great book if you want to grab that for yourselves. It can also help you learn Robert's Rules quite well. Let's talk about your rights and your expectations as a member of a deliberative body. So what's great about Robert's Rules is it makes sure that minority voices are heard. Everybody has a chance to be heard when it comes to Robert's Rules. And not only that, you have a chance to participate in making motions, you have a chance to participate in debating, and then ultimately in voting. Motions demand voting. You also have the right to know what is going on. And we're going to learn our first motions of the day. Point of information and parliamentary inquiry. If you don't know what's going on, just ask for a point of information. And point of information is also one of the most misused motions. Do you know what people use point of information quite often for? Yeah, to correct people. Point of information. You know, General Henry Robert actually specifically invented Robert's Rules in 1876, Jeff. And okay, that's great, but that's not what point of information is for. So don't abuse that motion. You can use point of information to basically just say, hey, Chair, I don't understand what I just heard. Or I don't understand the ins and outs of the debate. Can we just take a step back and explain that to me? You have the right to ask that at any time and use that right. And then kind of a cousin to that is parliamentary inquiry. You have the right to ask about parliamentary procedure. Hey, I don't understand why we're voting for this when it seems like we should be voting for that. Somebody mentioned that we're going to take a recess, and then somebody said they wanted to amend a motion, but we're not voting on what's going on. Ask for a parliamentary inquiry. So point of information, that points to like the debate, the topic. Feel free to use it. Parliamentary inquiry, that points to, I don't understand what's going on from the Roberts Rules perspective. Moving on to your expectations. Basically, in a nutshell, just engage in respectful conduct. And so those things include refrain from speaking until recognized. Wait until the chair recognizes you. We have the lucky thing with the assembly that we have a queue system. And so the chair gets to kind of corral everybody that way. You guys, I don't think, have that here. So the chair kind of has to keep track of who's next. Remember, a motion is being debated, not the person that's talking. And speak to the chair if you can. That's something that we see people slip up. They'll accuse someone of speaking to motive. They'll accuse somebody of, you're just making this motion because you want to get reelected or whatever. Do not speak to the members. Speak to the motions. Keep to the topic. And speaking of keeping the topic, do you all know what the word germane means? Everyone's familiar with that? Sometimes it's a new word to people. Stay on topic. And when we say stay on topic to be germane, we also mean stay on topic and be germane to the motion. If we make a motion to get a dog, we're going to adopt a dog. And then someone makes an amendment and says, well, I want a fluffy dog. So I want to amend the motion to be a fluffy dog. Well, now the topic is what?
Fluffiness.
Whether the dog should be fluffy or not, right? Not whether you should get a dog. And then someone might say, well, I want it to be a black-haired fluffy dog. I want to make a motion to amend the amendment. Well, now it's whether it's going to be black fluffy or white fluffy or green fluffy. So germane to the motion at hand. Don't go off topic, even though you feel like, well, we're talking about dogs. Shouldn't I be able to still talk about dogs? No, we're talking about white fluffy dogs. All right, a quorum. Before we can move on to talk about voting, we want to make sure you understand what a quorum is. A quorum is basically the minimum acceptable numbers of members needed to make this meeting valid. I can't tell you, like I said earlier, the specifics of your organization. With the assembly, it has to be 7 members. So make sure you understand what the quorum is for this meeting.
5 for us.
5 out of 9? Makes sense. And you have 1 vacant, right? Maybe. All right, motions can be decided in various ways. So the most common is a majority vote. So more than half your members, which would be 5. But sometimes you have motions where at least 2/3 of your members need to vote yes or no in order for the vote to count. Unanimous consent. I don't know if you guys employ this very much, but if it seems obvious that the outcome is going to be all no's or all yeses, the chair can just basically say, hey, does anyone have an objection to this? Thinking they're not going to, nobody raises their hand, unanimous consent, the vote's done. You also have the possibility of the chair just simply deciding. If you make some sort of point of inquiry, or there's a few other motions, the chair can basically make the decision. But know that the chair also can be overridden. And real quick, speaking of chair, Jamie and I were over here and we thought we heard a question about the chair, but we couldn't really make it out. You remember that from like 45 minutes ago?
You were asking
Was it-
David if you could make a motion as the chair.
Oh, yeah.
You were in the corner.
Or to amend the agenda of the meeting.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. The chair is a member of the deliberative body and has all the rights of the deliberative body. Now, sometimes it's best etiquette to pass your gavel over to the co-chair if you have that option, but you certainly can make that motion. And sometimes there is no vote. Sometimes there is no decision. An example, a point of information. I just want to know what's going on. So the chair tells me, I made the motion, the chair gave me my answer, but there was no vote or decision. All right. A lot of people want to know, what does it mean if I'm out of order? So what does that exactly mean? So notice up here on this screen, we have point of order with an exclamation point and point of order with a question mark. Why do you think that is? It's kind of like how point of information gets misused. Point of order also gets misused quite a bit. Point of order is not this demand that, hey, you're out of line and I'm going to stop you right now. It's actually a question. It's asking the chair, hey, I think this is out of order. Can you make a decision on this? You're asking a question. And so keep that in mind. And also, a point of order doesn't necessarily have to be looking at something that's really egregious. It could be simply that you're just doing something out of order. You know, someone didn't understand that we're actually supposed to do this first and then this second. Or maybe someone's not being germane. You know, they don't realize we're talking about green fluffy dogs. They think we're just talking about fluffy dogs in general. So a point of order, we're actually talking about the fluffiness. Or can the chair make a decision on that? And as the chair, if you ever have somebody say point of order in a way that is making a demand that something needs to be done, ask them what's their question. Ask what question do you have? What rule do you think has been broken? So put them in kind of the right direction. The point of order is more of a question. All right, so to learn our motions, one of the best ways to learn motions is to talk about the classes first. So there's actually 5 classes. We're going to skip the last one due to time. We're going to go over these real quickly and then go into those common motions. So first off, we have main motions. We'll talk about precedence here in a second. We have main motions. And the thing that's easy about main motions, there's really only one type of main motion. That's a main motion. What is a main motion? It's just a formal request that says to your group, hey, let's make a decision or take action on this topic. I'd like to make a main motion, or excuse me, make a motion to get a white fluffy dog. I've made a main motion. Most all main motions require a second, and that basically just says, hey, yeah, I'd like to talk about what Jeff just said. And by virtue of that second, that means the chair is required to now put that question before the group. And then the last thing about a main motion is only one main motion can be considered at a time. So once you've made a main motion and it's been seconded, it's before the floor. That's all you talk about. You don't now talk about cats or chickens or pigs. All right. In that conversation script that we had, I told you about how we converted the Seinfeld-Cass conversation over from regular conversation to Robert's main motion. Here's a really simple example. Kramer said, I say we go to the movies. Well, how do you make that as main motion? I move to go to the movies. We have a second. Guess what we're talking about? Talking about going to the movies. Our next class is subsidiary motions. And subsidiary just means that you're making a motion that's a bit less important, but it's related to something else. It's related to the main motion. Subsidiary motions fine-tune that main motion. In regular conversation, hey, if we're going to go to a movie, I want to go see Agent 03. In Robert's rules, I move we add to see Agent 03 to the end of the main motion. And now we're going to be talking about that amendment. We're not talking about whether to go to the movies or not. We're talking about if we're going to the movies, are we going to see Agent 03? So subsidiary motions are just fine-tuning the main motion. Hopefully all this feels like common sense so far. Is there anything that feels like it's going over your head at all? Because hopefully it's not. But just you wait. All right, the next class is privilege motions. Privilege motions have special rights or privileges because the deliberative body is considered special. And Robert's rules looks out for you. So when these motions are made, they are immediately dealt with. And they could be urgent. They could be unrelated to the current motion entirely. They could be about you, or they could be about the entire group. But nonetheless, they're the most important motion. And if you look at that chart, not that first chart with all the colors on it, but the precedence chart, you'll notice at the top of the chart, it's fixing the time of adjournment and then adjournment. The reason they're at the top is Robert's rules considers those the most important motions, the privileged motions. Here's hopefully another simple example for you. In regular conversation, hey, it's hot in here and I'm getting sweaty. Frank, you're sweaty, right? Can we change that to a privileged motion? Certainly. And notice it has nothing to do with going to the movies. I request a point of privilege. It's hot in here and it's causing us to sweat. If somebody says that, the chair has an obligation to take care of that then and there. Not the amendments, not the main motion. We're taking care of that point of privilege right now. All right, and our last category is incidental motions. Incidental motions are kind of similar to privileged motions in that they often can feel like they're not part of the main motion. They may arise because of the main motion before us. They may arise because of procedural reasons. Or they may arise because of conduct at the meeting. You can probably guess that point of order would probably be an incidental motion. We address these also pretty quickly, usually immediately. But if there was a privileged motion that came into the vote, that's going to get taken care of first. So incidental motions have a high precedence. They just come second to privileged motions. Here's an example of an incidental motion. Seinfeld cast was talking about going to see Agent 03, and they were talking about going to a restaurant. And how did we convert that to an incidental motion, to the motion divide the question? I move we divide the question so as to consider separately to see a movie and to go out to eat. We just simply divided the question in two. And that's an example of an incidental motion. All right, guys, that's the classes of motions. The next thing we want to do before we specifically look at motions is understand the characteristics of all motions. So first off, we have precedence, and that's the order in which motions can be made and voted upon. I know I told you we were going to look at that chart here soon. I promise we're about a minute away from looking at it. And it's important to understand how that chart works. That's going to tell us about precedence. The next characteristic of a motion to know is basically how can it be used. And we've already started talking about how amendment can be used, how point of privilege can be used. You want to know, how can I use this motion? The next thing you want to know about a motion is, can I interrupt with it? Can I talk over the chair? Can I talk over everybody else? Is it okay to just spit this out? Each motion has the ability to look up whether you can interrupt with that motion or not. We're going to talk about that in a second. The next characteristic of a motion is, do I need to second it? Or does it need to be seconded? Most main motions all need to be seconded, but some other motions don't. Can we discuss this motion? Someone just brought up buying a white fluffy dog. Can we talk about it? Most motions you can, but some you can't debate. Can I propose a change to that motion? Can I amend it? How do we vote on this motion? Or do we even need to vote on this motion? And we kind of went over that earlier. And lastly, can we look at this motion again later if we vote on it and decide we didn't like what we decided on? So these standard characteristics are all on that colorful chart, the first one that I gave you. If you take any motion on that chart and look to the right of it, for example, if you look at amend, you're going to see it tells you, can you interrupt if you want to make an amendment? No, you cannot. Do I need to have a second if I make an amendment? Yeah, you do. Can we debate someone's suggestion to have an amendment? Sure. And so on. An amendment's allowed on an amendment? Oh yeah, we talked about that. Because of fluffy dog, we can make an amendment to make it a white fluffy dog. So every motion we're going to talk about has these characteristics, and we created this chart for you to show you those characteristics. You can also look up those characteristics in those books that we talked about. Any good Robert's Rules of Order book will take you through any motion and chart out whether you can interrupt, whether you need a second, whether you can debate on it. It's really important to know those characteristics about almost every motion. And so know you've got the chart, and you've got those books, you've got the internet with plenty of information on it. But having said that, remember what we learned earlier, that your Robert's rules here might be a little different than someone's Robert's rules over at the Assembly or someone in Saskatchewan. So be careful in that regard. All right, guys, we're at 5:18. I told you pajama party level, and we haven't even started talking about emotion yet. So I want to make sure we're doing okay.
I had a brief question.
Yeah.
When it comes to talking about, House rules and Robert's rules, I know that some of the other, especially advisory boards, have talked about having modified rules in Robert's rules for like small boards or advisory boards, and I don't know if that would be your place or if that would be there, but there has been some discussion as like adopting, modified rules, and if that's something that they wanted to do, if that's something that is recommended, or if it is following a more strict form of Robert's rules.
I'm just going to pop in here and say yes. Traditionally, you have had the ability to make your own rules of order, and do it by resolution. I will say that we've introduced an ordinance that requires that it be done in accordance with Title 3.4 or something. So I think you have to put a resolution before the assembly so they can put it into the Missile Code of Regulations.
Cool.
So that it'll exist so that anybody, you know, if half the board leaves, then anybody coming in can actually find it and know what your procedures had been. So up and coming.
Thanks, Jimmy. Would that have the rules like reintroduced to have them go through that if that passes, or would the rules that have already been passed for rules of order are stay the same?
So the hope is that it's going to get adopted in September and not effective until January. So that would give you the time to get it into the regulations.
So guys, this procedures chart is going to help you with two things. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to tell you, is it okay to make this motion now? And the second thing it's going to do, which motions do we vote on first if we have multiple motions that are on the floor? So let's explain this here. So as far as motions that are on the floor, or excuse me, is it okay to make this motion now? Let's say that you have a main motion out on the floor. Your main motion is, I move we take ourselves to Funky Town. Okay, and so someone seconded that, and that's before the floor. And now somebody wants to make a motion to recess. Is that okay? Can they do that? Anyone want to guess? You've probably done this before, so I would imagine you would say, well, sure, we've made motions and then made a motion to recess. So yes, it would be okay. And how do we know that? The main motion is circled in red down there. Any motion above the most recent motion made, it's acceptable to make. So you went from a main motion to a recess. Yeah, that's okay. But look, now someone wants to make a second motion. So we haven't voted on the recess yet. The recess is still pending on the floor. And someone says, hey, I make a motion to amend the main motion. So that's that primary amendment down there. That would not be okay. You're going against precedents. You have to take care of that recess first. And so you simply just go up the chart. You started at the main motion. Anything is fair game because everything's above main motion. Remember we said a main motion has the lowest precedence. So it's down at the bottom. Everything's fair game. But someone made the recess motion. Oh, now the only thing you could do is someone could make a motion to adjourn or fix the time to adjourn. That's the only thing. So if you want to know when a motion is acceptable to make, look at this chart, go up the chart. If someone's trying to do something beneath what was done most recently, you can't do that. Now there is one tricky thing here though. You'll notice that to the right of secondary and primary amendment, it says can be appended to higher motions, marked with a check mark. That means some of those motions that have the check marks, all the motions that have the check marks, can in turn be amended. So let's say that we have a main motion on the floor to go to Funky Town, and then someone makes a motion to recess. And they say, I say we recess for 10 minutes. And then someone could say, well, I'd like to make an amendment to actually recess in 20 minutes. That would be okay to hold that amendment. It's attached to the recess. So you would vote on the amendment on the recess, take care of that amendment. Now you're back to the main recess question. Take care of that. So does that make sense, guys? Okay. So now let's move on to which motions do we vote on first. We know whether it's okay to make a motion now, but what do we vote on first? You just go down the chart. And we kind of already talked about that. There was the motion to recess. We got to take care of that, so we'll vote on that. Let's say that gets voted down. Now we move down the chart. What's next? If that primary amendment was made and was waiting on us, well, then we vote on that. And then once that's taken care of, we go down to the main motion. So you can make motions going up the chart, and you vote going back down the chart. Do you ever find yourselves in meetings where you're getting confused by too many motions, and what do we do first?
Not this meeting. For sure.
Well, hopefully that can help. And then before we leave this page, notice way down the bottom, there's incidental motions. Why aren't those on the chart, Jeff? Well, they are. They're on the very bottom. But those can be made at any time. And the only thing that's going to get in the way of an incidental motion, so let's say that somebody I know we haven't talked about it yet, but someone objects to consideration of a motion. I object to considering the white fluffy dog question. Well, we're going to vote on it immediately, we just learned, except if, anyone remember?
Debate has begun.
What'd you say?
Debate has begun.
No, unless a privilege motion gets in the way. Privilege motions have the most importance, they're the highest precedence. And so you'll take care of incidental motions unless a privilege motion gets in the way. And generally it won't, but just know that if it did, that's how that works. All right, any questions about this chart? Does that help at all? Yeah.
Point of inquiry, sure.
I like how you use it.
When will Burgess' father come through the door with the Festivus full and then call the motion for the feats of strength? And who is going to challenge Mr. Whitberg? Will it be Ms. Hines? Will it be somebody else? I don't know. But I really like this Seinfeld joke.
I did enjoy it, and I think it's December 15th is Festivus.
I will say it is 5:25. Do we want to fix the time to which to adjourn by 15 minutes? I move we extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Can I get a second? Any opposition to extending the meeting by 15 minutes? You may leave. We will still have a quorum, I believe.
And guys, I certainly don't mind coming back in a month and doing a part 2. That's easier. Not trying to weed.
Yeah, I want to leave
Oh yeah,
time.
and I would also say that as part of the rollout of that ordinance that I just spoke about, we are inviting all commissioners to, like, we're having 3 different trainings, come to whatever one works for your own schedule, over the course of the fall. And so that's where he'll be given his whole big one. So that's available too in the future.
The pajama.
Yeah.
You say that, I'm gonna show it. It's gonna happen.
All right, guys, so we now kind of understand the precedence chart. We've kind of touched on this chart of common motions. Let's just go through. This is pretty simple, being recognized and making a motion. So just get the chair's attention. Or if you're on the assembly, you obviously get to push a button. The chair is going to recognize you. The chair recognizes Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith can say, thank you, Mrs. Chair. I move that we order lunch. The chair is going to thank you, or someone might just immediately say second, or the chair might ask for a second. We just got to see it. Better to see it than to be taught it, I would say. Another member will second it, and the chair is now going to state the question. It's important to do that, because remember we talked about point of information? Point of information is for when you don't know what's going on. Well, as a chair, you can try and get ahead of the game. Maybe they didn't hear. Maybe they were sitting in this corner and had to wait to ask the question until later because they couldn't hear, but the chair wouldn't know that. So the thing that the chair can do, not to put pressure on your chair, is to state that question to make sure that everybody heard it. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we order lunch. Is there any discussion? Skipping to the end, once the chair recognizes no further debate will take place on a question, they will state the question. So it's again doing kind of the same thing. All right, debate has ended, we've verified that. The question before us is, are we going to get a white fluffy dog? Or I guess it was to get lunch. And then the chair also wants to state, how are we going to vote? Remember we talked about there's different ways to vote. Let's not just assume that everybody knows. Maybe it's a supermajority vote. Maybe it's a regular vote. So make sure you state that as well. And once that vote has been counted, the chair will announce the results. And again, make sure everyone understands. So there's a lot on the chair there to make sure there's that second, to make sure that the question's been stated, to make sure that everyone knows, hey, it's time to vote, and this is how we will vote. And then finally, to make sure that people know how we did vote and what's the result of that. With that being said, guys, we're now going to go through our chart of motions. So it's going to that colorful 2-page, I think it's 2 pages, or double-sided page of all your motions. We kind of already know what a main motion is, and we know there can only be one made at a time, and we know it's the foundation of the entire discussion. So let's make a main motion that we can work with as we go forward. So I move that we get tattoos on Saturday. Can I get a second? Someone gives a second. The chair is now going to state before us is the question to whether we get tattoos on Saturday. Is there any discussion? It's possible that in that discussion, somebody might want to make a motion to amend. Now, when we look at amend, remember that's a subsidiary motion. We're going to go in order of all the subsidiary motions on your chart from here on out. An amend can be used in a variety of ways. It can be used to insert words. So I would like to add Saturday at the end of Get Tattoos. So I'm specifically inserting words. It can be used to strike out words. I'd like to strike out tattoo, although that would really change the entire question at hand, so that's probably not a good example. But I would like to strike out such and such word and add this word. Or it can be a combination of that. And make sure that you clarify what you're doing, and again, make sure that you state your name. I think we kind of know that there's a possibility of primary and secondary amendments. We talked about that with the white fluffy dog. We went from a dog to a fluffy dog to a white fluffy dog to a green fluffy dog. All right, so that is amendment. Let's make sure that we understand. I think you guys got this really well, but I want to make sure that you understand how you state your main when there's multiple amendments that might come into play. So the main motion was made, I move we get tattoos on Saturday. We got a second. All right, so now we have ourselves a main motion, and the chair is going to ask us if there's discussion to be had. We're debating. Someone makes a primary motion to amend. They just make a motion to amend. I move to change Saturday to Sunday. So we're going to go and debate on that. But when we debate, what's germane now? It's if Saturday or Sunday is better. It's not if we should get tattoos. Of course we're going to get tattoos. Actually, not of course. We haven't voted on that. But we're discussing whether we should do it on Saturday or Sunday. That's what's germane. Then somebody says, hey, I have another amendment. I'd like to amend the amendment or make a secondary amendment. I move that we add at 2 a.m. because that'll be really cool after Sunday. So let's add at 2 a.m. after Sunday. So we start talking about that. And what's germane now? Not whether Saturday or Sunday is better, whether 2 a.m. makes sense. So now we've finished that discussion, we vote, and let's say that it passed. So we're definitely going to do it at 2 a.m. if this main motion passes. Now we can go back to the debate on the primary amendment. Now we can discuss Saturday or Sunday. Let's say we vote and that passes. It's going to be Sunday at 2 a.m. Now we can go back and debate on the main motion. So stage your main to the motion. The motion being the main motion, then the primary, and then the secondary. And then work your way back. I think you guys got that. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is call the question. Call the question is also a subsidiary motion. Call the question is also used kind of like point of order is. A lot of people that I've seen in my time will call out, I call the question, as if that just magically means we have to vote. It does not. Call the question is a question in of itself. I move we call the question. It means, hey chair, I think discussion should end. Let's take a vote on whether discussion should end. And then that is a supermajority vote. Notice on your chart, little blue supermajority. And the reason why it's a supermajority vote is you're taking away people's voices possibly. That's the whole thing behind a deliberative assembly, is that we get together and discuss, have the option of speaking up when we feel like we're in the minority. So if we're going to take that debate away, we better make sure that we're doing it for good cause, and supermajority makes sure of that. Also, don't keep calling this motion. Sometimes we see that where you call the question and then 5 seconds later someone calls the question again. That's not cool. If you were the chair, you could ask them to cut that out. All right, so if we said, I move that we strike Saturday and insert Sunday, and then a secondary amendment came up about that 2 a.m., and someone says, I move that we call the question, what does that mean? What question are we calling, guys?
The amendment to the amendment.
Yeah. The second degree. So we're gonna vote, and we're gonna, if we get a supermajority vote, that means we can vote on the 2 a.m. secondary amendment. I'm getting myself confused. All right. Any questions on calling the question? The next one we'll talk about is extending and limiting the debate. This motion has the option to mess with limiting, extending debate for individuals, for the entire assembly as a whole, or it could limit the number of times someone may speak. So be exact with what you're asking when you make this motion, or ask for clarification if you're the chair, because it can mean a few different things. Again, this is supermajority vote time. So this one, you guys actually just did, so I don't even know why I'm teaching on this, because you just gave me 15 minutes perfectly. The next one, to postpone indefinitely. I don't know if you guys use this much, but basically this is the kill switch. When you postpone indefinitely, it's basically saying it's going away. It's going away indefinitely. And really specifically, it means if you pass that postpone indefinitely, it can't be brought up in this session. It's gone, you voted on it. It can be brought up in sessions to come next month or whenever you guys meet next. But generally, postpone indefinitely means that you're killing a motion. Question, pop quiz, could you postpone an amendment? And you guys actually could figure this out with the information I gave you. And it's on the screen here if you just want to look at it here. So let's say in the yellow there you have primary and secondary amendment. So we've made a main motion to go to Funky Town. And then someone says, I'd like to make an amendment to go to Funky Town to include with our roller skates on it. And then someone says, I'd like to make a motion to postpone indefinitely. Would that be okay?
Yes, we're going down.
Close.
No, you can't because it's below.
Correct.
Yeah.
So remember with precedence, you start at the main motion, you can do anything above it. And we chose to make an amendment. So we're at that primary amendment, the third from the bottom. That's the motion on the floor right now. Are we going to Funky Town with roller skates on? And now someone says, hey, I want to postpone indefinitely. I want to make a motion to do that. You can't, because that's underneath the primary amendment.
Oh, I thought we'd be postponing indefinitely the discussion about roller skates.
Well, the motion on the floor right now is whether to wear roller skates, which is the primary amendment. It's that third row from the bottom.
Right.
And you can't make anything beneath it. You can only make motions above it.
So you have to settle everything first, and then you can say, all of that was a waste of time.
Yeah, so if we voted on the roller skates and we voted it down, then, okay, now we're back to the main motion is pending on the floor. Now you could postpone indefinitely. Thought we'd throw that pop quiz in there because we just learned about precedence and it helps kind of solidify that. Does that make sense, guys? And if it doesn't, we can give you another example. There's tons of examples we could do. If you had a main motion to buy a fluffy dog and someone says, I make a motion to call the previous question, would it be okay for someone to say, hey, I make a motion to take a recess? Yeah, because recess is above calling the previous question. So that'd be totally fine. So just look up, can we do it if it's above? Yeah, we can, it's above. But then as far as voting, then it's going down. Now you're working your way down the list. All right, let's vote on that, or we're not voting on a question of privilege, but you take care of it. Now let's vote on calling the previous question. Now let's vote on the main motion. All right, I think kids should run the world. I know I work for the government and I probably shouldn't say that. But a lot of the videos that I show in my trainings are kids because they just do things so simply, and how can you argue with what they pull off compared to us sometimes? And I'll stop on myself. Let's watch these guys. Uh-oh, Frankie. I think you have to go to slideshow, Frankie, but on the top. And then from current slide on the top left. And then click on her and hopefully you
Julia one, to the right.
Well, I gotta tell you, this video brought you to your class. So the reason I wanted to show this is these guys' assembly actually doing a postpone a motion to postpone. And they do it very well and actually have a debate with it, and then they vote on it, and you get to see it in action. But maybe at the pajama party, we'll have this all good to go. And Frankie, thank you for trying. All right, so the next possible postponement is postponed to a certain time. Don't get as confused with postponing indefinitely. To postpone to a certain time is not killing a motion. You're specifically postponing to a certain time, and make sure you're specific in your postponement motion so that we know, or ask, well, what are you suggesting that we postpone it to? So back to this chart. Could you make a motion to postpone to a certain time? I want to postpone this talk about Robert's rules until the next meeting. And currently on the floor, there's that primary amendment. So to go back in time, we made a main motion to buy a dog, and then someone made a primary amendment motion to get a fluffy dog, and now someone says, hey, I want to actually postpone to a certain, to next month. Is that okay? Yeah, we just worked our way up.
Sure. Point of inquiry.
Yeah.
Motion to postpone discussion of Robert's Rules of Order to the next meeting on October. What date is it? Because I see people checking their phones. I'm reading the room.
Thank you. I think the commissioner needs to. But I will say we do want to leave a little bit of time.
Yeah, let's put a pin in it, and I would love to come back. And we've got a good base here, and we're going to keep working up, and you guys maybe will have some questions for them. Not that you haven't already been asking great questions, but more questions for next time. I think that'd work out well.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we have 5 minutes. I would move that we postpone the review of the HHAND Commission rules and procedures to next month. And checking my handy dandy chart, do we need a second? I need a second. Any debate? No debate. Ask for any opposition. Great, go ahead and do that. And then the presentation on the winter mobile outreach process, Thea has left.
She asked if I would
Oh, great.
step in. I'll make it like 2 minutes. We'll make it short, sweet. I want y'all to get out of here. Before you, there is a draft version of previous discussions from the winter mobile outreach process, discussing this with Thea because we're moving to a year-round, oh yes, sorry, thank you. Because we're moving to a year-round shelter system, there's not going to be a dedicated mobile winter outreach. Our outreach is going to look the same as it does all year round with ACEH, AHD's mobile clinic, the HOPE team, CAP, MIT, MCT, AFD. I realize that there's little bubble got erased up here as I look at this now. So we had decided that because this change is something new that the Assembly and the administration has never done before, we wanted to give you a graphic on how it looks. Try to help people digest kind of the upflow and outflow of participants in shelter. So starting from top to bottom, people experiencing homelessness can enter any one of these 3 bubbles, so treatment, outreach, and response, or enforcement, and vice versa, to get into one of these shelter systems. So that is that middle section. And it breaks it down by what is 100% muni funded, what is muni supported, and then ones that are not. The ones that are in the dark blue bubble in the middle are East 56, Linda's Place. Those have that 50 surge capacity, so those will be activated based on what they decide in the coming months. Our partner shelters, and then the non-funded shelters, and then also our transitional and low rent housing that are muni funded in that bottom section. On the back page is all the contact information for the said front page, including some additional resources like 311, 211, and restorative and re-entry services. So this is just to give everyone a snapshot of how the year-round shelter system is going to flow. With that, we are looking at it as a draft. We are looking for feedback. So please feel free to email myself or Thea, and I have business cards if anybody needs my contact. If not, I'm sure Frankie can share that out. But yeah, it's going to go through the administration as well. We just finished it today before this meeting. So this is what we have for you. And their draft versions, I think, were handed out, so. Feel free to write all over it, scan it, take a picture, email me, email Leah. Any questions?
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
General public comments?
Yeah, I got one minute or two.
I'm gonna give you 3 minutes.
It probably won't last long. This will be one of the short ones because I'm unprepared. So, getting over motion sickness, maybe the next one, we'll get back to that one. station camps. So, in general, I think it needs to be revisited. I think the topic needs to be had. Because once you get to the acceptance stage and the stages of grief, you will begin to notice that not everybody's coming back to society. And so then the question becomes, how do you address the problem of the people outside when, for whatever reason, they're not going to reintegrate back in? A lot of people have traumas, and they've just checked out because they've been outside so long. It's the PTSD thing that people go through Vietnam and other places as well. And so then the question becomes, where are those people going to go, and how do you support them, and then provide pathways out so that hopefully you do not have camping on every street corner, but you understand that those people exist, and so they need food, they need support, they need electricity, and heat, warming center, and some of these other things. But finding the top level, solution is not super difficult. It's finding creative implementations and making it work so that you get people vested in working that problem, not just from the business community, people from within the industry, politicians need to buy into it too, but also the people outside, because they have to want to buy into that, and similar to any sort of substance abuse treatment facility, if you force it on people, it's not going to be successful. And so right now, this is lacking. So I don't know if you want to revisit sanction camps, but I think it needs to be done. The only other question I had was obviously, currently we went from this one to this one, which is 100%. And so don't know how many of the 100% are out there because you're not counting heads and beds, but clearly, this makes it difficult to tell how many people are between 30 and 90 days not checking in with a provider. I think that's sort of the reason why it was changed. So, anyways, I don't know if anyone wants to discuss that one too, but we have bad data and it influences bad decisions. So, all right, here we go. I think that's good.
Questions?
So in your perfect world, you're saying that the sanctioned camping,
it's got to exist.
It would be, what would that look like?
This is a longer discussion. People are going, but yeah, it's if you think about this thing, and not everybody's coming back, you got 8 or 9 options, and you're not going to put people in jails because that's obviously very expensive, and it doesn't necessarily lead to good outcomes. And so it has to exist. And so places like Davis Park or Cuddy or somewhere else need to exist. And then the question is, there are ways to work the problem. Let me just put that one. You just have to have the discussion to get people willing to understand that the outcomes are worse by not doing it that way.
So I guess maybe a simpler question might be, do you agree with the report and the outcomes from the Sanction Camp Task Force?
I didn't, that was technically when I was in a car, so I never even saw the whole thing. But what I saw was the AR 2023 188 S1, and I thought it was a pie in the sky pipe dream where I was like, everybody gets a free pony too, but it needs to go that way. And then obviously the alternative is, if you do not say, here are your options, then you have a reason to discuss the stick, you know what I mean? But you need the carrot, and you need to give people places to go, because the alternative is making everybody criminal, and that's what they're doing now. And that is not an option. So,
Real quick, commissioners' comments. You want to get commissioners' comments? Great. Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any opposition? All right. Wonderful evening.
Technically, if your agenda is done and it's time to adjourn, you don't need a second.
That is correct.
I just remember that from my old board meeting days, that it was, as long as it was time to adjourn, you just needed someone to move to adjourn.